Our first guest tonight says the Justice Department stonewall of the Comey memos is a farce, and joining us is Congressman Ron DeSantis, a member of several important committees, including Oversight, Government Reform, Foreign Affairs, and Judiciary. He's also the leading Republican candidate for governor of Florida. Congressman DeSantis, good to have you with us. And here we go again. The three chairmen that I just mentioned, they are very patient, and I frankly, I can't imagine why even Rosenstein, with his reticence to accept oversight, couldn't produce those memos just straightforwardly.
Of course. So I think what they should do is, they're going to extend the deadline. They should also set at the deadline contempt hearing for Rosenstein, so that Rosenstein knows if he doesn't meet the deadline, then we will just simply hold him in contempt. It could be on judiciary oversight or intelligence. I would support any of that, because these guys know they can stonewall, and then all we say is, oh, well, we'll give it to us next week. There needs to be consequences here. But here's the thing, Lou. If, in fact, Rosenstein is telling the truth, that there's some serious issues with these memos, classification, all these other things, then why is there not an investigation of Comey for leaking this stuff? We know there were 7 memos, and Chuck Grassley has already reviewed them, and they've determined that of the 7 memos, 4 of them had classified information. Well, guess how many memos he leaked to his buddy to then send to the New York Times? 4 memos. So at a minimum, he leaked 1 memo that had classified information, and he's also leaking information that are effectively privileged communications with the president. And I think his book tour, this is really blowing up in Comey's face. Some of the things that he has done as director, I think, has now been exposed, and he was not honest with President Trump about the genesis of the dossier. He should have told him that was funded by the Democrats and Hillary. But you know what? He was never fully honest about that fact with the Congress either. So I think he's trying to act like it's not a big deal now, because he knows he's vulnerable in some of the testimony he's given.
And as Alan Dershowitz, certainly not a conservative or GOP firebrand, one of the country's preeminent liberals, saying he can't imagine how the man could be FBI director with all that has been revealed about him, most of which he's revealed about himself. It's truly troubling to think about the personality types that made up the leadership of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and now, as we learn more about Loretta Lynch and the Obama Justice Department, who was leading that. It's deeply, deeply problematic.
And his kind of schizophrenic behavior is reflective of a political double standard, which is really, really troubling. Remember, in the book, he's saying, oh, Obama weighed in on the Hillary case. He shouldn't have done that. He exonerated her twice. Oh, Loretta Lynch was conflicted. But he never called for a special counsel. He never pursued remedies. Instead, he decided to exonerate her himself. What did he do with President Trump? He treated Trump like a suspect from day one, and then he leaks memos to try to trigger a special counsel investigation. So he was political throughout this whole thing. And can you imagine an FBI director justifying actions on the eve of an election by looking at polling data? I mean, who made this guy king of the universe? Give me a break.
Well, he obviously thinks he's not only king of it, but the center of it, and drawing to himself enormous powers that one would never think a rational person would even contemplate, including being the arbiter of what is appropriate for both the Attorney General, for the FBI, and of course for whoever is the President of the United States. The outcome of that election, of course, he tried mightily, it is clear now, to have influence. Let me turn to meddling in the 2016 presidential election. Mueller. Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch here called for the president to pardon just everyone to get this out of the way. What do you think of that as a solution?
Well, I think the one thing you look at with Flynn and the Papadopoulos prosecutions, those were very aggressive prosecutions on false statements that really weren't material to a crime having been committed. You look at people like Cheryl Mills and Huma, they made demonstrably false statements about this server, which was central to that case, and there was never any attempt to bring prosecutions there. There was never any attempt to raid Cheryl Mills' offices like they have Michael Cohen. So I think it'd be good to wrap this thing up first. But I do think that those people were not treated the same that the people in the Hillary investigation were treated.
And I want to ask you about the resigned lame duck Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, who now appears to be trying to bribe members of the House, saying that he can raise a lot more money than any potential successor for the conference and would like to stay through so that they don't fall short of their fundraising goals. That seemed, well, to me, just downright shameless on the part of the Speaker. And I can't imagine it not being rejected by the conference, who should be moving toward having not lame duck leadership going into the important midterms, but new leadership, strong leadership.
Well, I think that's the thing, Lou. It's like if you want to keep the House, and as you mentioned at the top, I mean, I'm running for governor down in Florida, so I'm not going to be there to vote for the next speaker if they wait until after the election. But the reason why you would want to do it now is because we want to give our voters a reason to come out and vote. And I think if you have somebody in there who's really strong in pursuing the president's agenda, and I think the most important thing, though, for the next speaker is that you're willing to take on this permanent bureaucracy and administrative state and be much more aggressive than we have been over the last several years. If you're willing to do that, I think you're going to see a lot of positive action, and I think our voters would be very excited to come out to vote for that type of speaker.
All right. Ron DeSantis, thanks for being with us, Congressman, as always.
Thank you. Yep.